All year long, there are a lot of bank robberies in the Boston area of Charlestown. Doug, Jem, Glonsey, and Des are four lifelong pals who excel at it. As the mastermind behind their schemes, Doug imparts to the other three all the information they must learn without fail before their next operation. They seize the opportunity to push the guard as he enters the bank carrying a money bag and take control of the situation right away. The intruders force manager Claire Kesey to unlock the vault after forcing everyone present to the ground and robbing them of their cell phones. The robbers start pouring bleach all over the place to get rid of any potential DNA evidence after taking all the money and placing the hard disks from the surveillance cameras in a microwave to destroy them. They are not aware that Claire is definitely pressing a silent alarm button until it is too late. When they realize it, Jem assaults the assistant manager under the pretense that it was him, and as he moves ferociously, Claire can see his neck tattoo. Jem chooses to take Claire along with them as a hostage, which is something they never do, as the police are going to encircle them. Before putting off their masks, they blindfold her, and once they are sufficiently away from the bank, they drop her off at the beach because they no longer require her. The FBI takes control of the crime scene, and Special Agent Adam Frawley is in charge. He can see that the thieves took care of every last detail and left no trace, demonstrating their professionalism. The van they used for the robbery is also discovered by his guys, but it has been set on fire, and no one in the area is ready to testify as a witness. The following day, when Frawley questions Claire, she only divulges what little she knows and leaves out the tattoo specifics because the thieves have threatened to kill her if she provides any information to the FBI. When Jem finally shows up to explain his terrible plan to hold a hostage, the four robbers learn even worse news. Claire will frequently run into him in the area because he has her ID and has noted she lives close to them. Doug steps in and says he will do it because Jem has already been to jail once and he can't afford a second strike, but in reality, he will do it because he doesn't trust how violent Jem has been lately. He thinks he should follow her around to make sure she is scared enough not to talk. Doug and Jem then proceed to the area to make all necessary payments to their car and weapons dealers as well as Fergie, an Irish mobster with a flower shop. After that, they have a night of drinking, gambling, and drug use with call girls. The four of them are having a drink at a bar the following night when Chris, Jem's sister and a single mother, approaches them. She claims she misses Doug because they used to be together, but Doug doesn't want to talk to her and walks away. However, a few hours later, as Doug is watching television at his house, Chris enters using her old set of keys and makes love to him on the couch. The following day, Doug begins stalking Claire and follows her into the laundromat. He seizes the opportunity to make eye contact and pretended to soothe her as she broke down in tears after discovering faded bloodstains on her clothing. He takes her out for a drink to cheer her up. They converse and become friends despite the fact that Doug lies and says he works in construction and that his father lives in the suburbs rather than in jail. He then pretends that the boat belongs to a friend while actually breaking in so that he may take her out on it. He simply responds that rumors about the numerous bank robbers in Charlestown are exaggerated when she inquires about them. Doug informs Jem he has Claire under control and that she doesn't need to be killed when they meet the next day. Frawley discovers a clue after questioning and assaulting one of his criminal contacts. These thieves weren't like other thieves, they knew how to work the box. They start looking at job histories and personnel profiles because this kind of knowledge can only be learned when working for a company like Vericom. In order to get additional information from Claire, Frawley also visits her for lunch. He tries to flirt with her but she reveals that she is sort of dating someone else. Doug begins dating Claire, but he keeps their relationship a secret from his friends. More information about one another is revealed as they become closer. Doug asks Claire whether they have any potential suspects after Claire acknowledges she is working with the FBI while seeming as though he is merely inquisitive. She also describes the tattoo she observed, but she is unsure whether to mention it to Frawley for fear of being killed for doing so. Doug tells her to keep it a secret for the time being so she has a card to play later, especially if doing so will prevent her from going into witness protection. Doug replies that his mother abandoned him when he was 6 years old and that he attempted to find her, but that his father did nothing about it. On one of their dates, Claire mentions that she must travel a longer route to get to work because if she takes the usual route, some gang members will throw bottles at her car. Doug picks up Jem and they try to terrify the attackers after dropping her off at home. When Jem gets too involved, Doug merely beats them up and plants some narcotics while warning them to leave before the week is through. Jem then takes off his mask and reveals his face to the man. With Jem's recent spate of violence, Doug is not pleased. Frawley discovers Dez's file as a Vericom employee, and notices that the dates of his sick days line up with several bank robberies. Even though they are still lacking concrete proof to convict them, this enables them to follow him into a family barbecue and learn the identity of the entire gang. Frawley instructs his operatives to continue keeping watch on everyone for the time being. During their lunch date on a sunny day, Claire confides in Doug that the weather makes her think of the day her brother passed away. When she takes a brief break from the table to use the restroom, Jem unexpectedly appears and sits next to Doug. Concerned that he may learn his secret, Doug attempts unsuccessfully to get him to go. Claire returns, and even though Doug makes sure to say farewell to him as an excuse to conceal the tattoo with his hand, Jem still plays along and chats for a while before departing. Later, Jem confronts Doug about her because he believes it is a bad idea for them to sleep with someone who could land them in jail. Although he hasn't notified the others, he wants Doug to take action and contract on their subsequent operation. Due to his dislike for the men they will be working with, Doug believes they are not prepared for their upcoming robbery and advises them to locate a replacement. But Jem persists, so Doug caves with the proviso that this will be his final employment. After that, he visits his father in jail to let him know he might be gone for a time and to him about why he never looked for his mother. In response, his father says it would be pointless to try to turn someone who obviously doesn't want to be a mother into one. It is time for them to do their next procedure on Friday. They completely wash themselves and sanitize all of their equipment with bleach to ensure that there are no fingerprints on it before they plant some hair from a hair salon as fictitious evidence. When an armored truck parked, they use the automobile to follow it and rob it there. At first, everything goes as planned, but then one of the guards tries to fight back and points a gun at them. They kill the guard and return to the car, driving as quickly as they can to avoid being caught because the police are also after them. They create numerous accidents along the road, and when the police finally corner them, they shoot the officers as well before turning around and fleeing back the way they came. This time, Glonzy tries some risky driving maneuvers that enable him to cause the police cars to collide with one another. They finally manage to get away from the police when they discover their fourth team member waiting for them in a different car, so they switch vehicles and set the first car on fire to obstruct the cops' path. Although Frawley, who is monitoring the situation from his office, orders the police to seal the bridge, it is already too late because the robbers have already crossed it. A random police who is parked nearby notices them as they switch vehicles once more, but he chooses to ignore them. Frawley wants to at least talk to them even though they now lack any solid evidence, so he sends his men to bring the four of them in for questioning. Frawley attempts to probe them after having them read the lines the thieves said to the victims, but Jem simply remains silent after asking for legal counsel, and Doug, who is aware they have no evidence against him, tells him they have always known the FBI has been watching them because everyone is familiar with the appearance of their antennas. The next step for Frawley is to try to gather some more information from Claire, but when he phones the bank, he learns that she has left. He lets his guys tap her phone since he is starting to grow suspicious of her and discovers that she has been in communication with Doug the entire time. When Doug meets with her to present her a diamond necklace, he also finds out she quit. Doug takes this opportunity to ask her to go away with him, and she agrees. After their date is done, Claire is visited by Frawley, who first takes note of the necklace before revealing the truth and displaying her Doug's profile. Doug meets with Jem, who has received a new position from Fergie, but declines it and advises him to look elsewhere because he is finished. This infuriates Jem, who accuses him of leaving Chris and her child. However, Doug points out that nobody knows who the father is, and while he is grateful that Jem's family took him in when he was a child, it was never going to be the three of them playing house happily. Jem reminds Doug that he once killed a man to protect him and spent 9 years in prison for it, but Doug is unmoved and declines the position. Later, he visits Fergie to let her know about this as well, but Fergie doesn't want anyone else there because Doug is the real brains behind everything. Doug's father also went solo many years ago, which is why Fergie drugged his mother. Doug has been misled for the entire time, she never left, and she overdosed to death. Fergie threatens to treat Claire the same way he treated his mother if he rejects the job. Doug hurries over to Claire's house to see if she is okay, but she throws him out and won't accept his excuses or explanations. He then begins to watch over her apartment and witnesses one of Fergie's goons placing a casket wreath on her door. As Doug finally realizes he will be forced to accept this job, he smashes it. Doug tries to approach Claire again after visiting Chris to let her know he will be going after this job, promising she won't be wounded because he has stolen numerous banks but never killed anyone. Doug then asks her to wait for him before leaving. The group gathers to hear Fergie's plan. They will heist Fenway Park the morning after the big game, when their safes will be full, thanks to inside knowledge he has obtained. Frawley approaches Chris in a pub while they discuss the specifics because he believes she might be the weak link in the family. He pretends to flirt with her before showing her his badge and implying that he is aware she is Fergie's mule. He moves in and sows the seeds of discontent when she begs for a lawyer by pointing out that despite their lengthy relationship, Doug never gave her a diamond necklace. When Chris visits Doug to persuade him to take her with him since she also wants a new life, Doug turns her out by telling her he is leaving with someone else. As a result, Frawley and his men follow the wrong truck on the day of the operation. She crashes her car while under the influence and ends up in the hospital, where Frawley later discovers her. In exchange for information, he pledges to arrange safety for her and her child. She gives in and tells her about Fenway Park since she feels like she is constantly being used. While Doug and Jem pose as police officers and are granted access to the stadium by a contact of Fergie, Des utilizes his expertise as an electrician to turn off the alarms and security cameras. They encounter several workers and security guards, but their police bluff doesn't stick, and they soon pull weapons on the men and order them to prostrate themselves so they can tie them up. They then ascend to the cashier's area and instruct the staff to open the door and not to issue a distress call because they have guys waiting outside their houses who will shoot their wives if they do anything. They enter the building without a problem, stuff their bags full of cash, and then depart through the parking lot, where Glonsey and Des are waiting for them with an ambulance. When Jem notices the FBI trying to enter while they are already encircling the perimeter, he shoots fire on them. Glonsey is shot in the middle of a shootout between thieves and agents, but at least they were able to get him on the vest. Des sneaks back and unlocks the door while the other three are still firing, allowing them to push the vehicle carrying the agents out of the way. Doug reminds Des that unlike the others, he doesn't have a criminal record, so he can go and receive only 7 years in prison and no one would hold it against him. Doug then shuts the door once more. However, Des is really offended by this and decides to stay after calling Doug an F-word. The FBI then sends inside some special agents who shoot Des as soon as he stands up after throwing some shock grenades through the windows to confuse the robber's senses. Glonsey opts to pursue an extremely dangerous strategy. Doug and Jem will put on their police uniforms once more, but the FBI won't be looking for police officers, so he will just walk out the front door while maintaining the FBI's focus on him. Doug is concerned for Glonsey's safety if he ventures out, but Glonsey assures him that he is a superb driver and is familiar with escape routes. The ambulance leaves and moves down the block without incident, but a sniper shoots Glonsey in the head when the FBI is unable to stop it by simply firing at its wheels. Doug and Jem successfully change into their police uniforms and simply leave by mingling with other cops while the FBI inspects the ambulance, believing that all of the robbers will be present. However, the ruse is quickly exposed when the FBI learns that the workers who had been imprisoned inside had been ambushed by police. As a result, Frawley immediately begins searching for any officers acting strangely. He sees Jem leaving rapidly while carrying a large bag, so he immediately follows him into a parking lot. As soon as Frawley addresses him by name, Jem starts shooting at him, and soon the FBI and police are surrounding him as Doug stands across the street and watches. After Frawley manages to shoot Jem in the leg, Jem retreats behind a mailbox only to discover that he has run out of ammunition. He walks out of the jail with his guns in hand and kills himself since he doesn't want to return, prompting the officers to shoot him. While everyone is examining Jem's body, Doug doesn't let his sacrifice go in vain and makes off by robbing a police cruiser. He kills Fergie and his thug while driving to the flower shop, avoiding injury because he is protected by a bulletproof vest. Doug then contacts Claire, who has the FBI present in the flat listening to the conversation, after finding some money he had stashed. While viewing the apartment from a nearby building, Doug is aware that Claire is lying when she begs him to come over, saying that she is alone. Even so, he agrees to leave and asks her to meet him an hour from now at the back door. Claire offers sunny days as a subliminal hint to let him know it's all a trap after he apologizes to her once more, and Doug goes along with it. Doug hides some cash in Claire's garden as the FBI waits with her for a person who won't show up, and he mockingly writes a note on Frawley's car. Then, while sporting an MBTA outfit, he departs the city via train. Although Claire's sunny days comment raises Frawley's suspicions, it is too obscure for him to use as proof of anything, since Claire is not under investigation. Days later, she discovers the cash Doug left for her along with a message expressing hope that they will one day cross paths again. She makes the decision to donate it in honor of Doug's mother to help renovate the neighborhood ice hockey rink where he once competed.